Picture this: entire communities abandoned, economies crumbling, and natural disasters tearing through towns with no end in sight. This isn't a dystopian movie. It's the reality for millions of Americans right now. There are some big reasons for this, like the 13.7 million illegal immigrants living in America, or the loss of income from tourists coming from Canada, or America's dirty politics and the increasing non-American population, the increasing Muslim population. In 2025, parts of the United States are collapsing faster than ever before, and the consequences could reshape the entire country. So in today's video, we are going to show you 10 fastest collapsing states in America. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will shock you, and it might even make you rethink where you call home. But before starting the video, I want to request we out our best efforts to create our every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10, Washington. We start with Washington State at number 10. This place used to be known for tech giants like Microsoft and beautiful scenery, but now it's sliding into trouble. Relations with Canada are a mess. Trade disputes have slashed billions from the economy. The port of Seattle is practically a ghost town, with ships avoiding it because of tariffs and tension. Take Joe, a third-generation fisherman. His family has been in the seafood business for decades, but now, with the tariffs, he can't afford to export his catch. He's had to lay off half his crew and is considering closing down altogether. Illegal immigrants are flooding in too, taking jobs in farming and building, but leaving schools and hospitals stretched thin. According to recent reports, Washington State has seen a 20% increase in undocumented immigrants over the past 5 years. This influx has put a significant strain on public services, with schools and hospitals struggling to keep up. The Muslim population in Seattle is growing fast, and there's tension over things like mosque building and cultural rules. Some folks are even talking about Sharia law taking hold. While the Muslim community has brought new businesses and cultural diversity to Seattle, there have been challenges. Debates over mosque construction and cultural practices have led to heated town hall meetings, with some residents feeling their way of life is under threat. Politics here are a disaster, leaders in Olympia can't agree on anything, and corruption is everywhere. Just last year, officials got caught stealing money meant for roads and bridges. Take the case of the Evergreen Bridge. It was supposed to be repaired 3 years ago, but the funds allocated for the project vanished. An investigation revealed that a state senator had funneled the money into his own accounts. The bridge remains closed, and locals have to drive an extra 30 minutes to get to work. I think it's crazy how fast the state is falling apart. Imagine living in a place where your taxes go into someone's pocket instead of fixing your streets. If this keeps up, Washington won't stay at number 10 for long. Number 9, Arizona. Next up, at number 9, is Arizona, a state teetering on the edge of chaos. This desert hotspot is ground zero for the immigration crisis, with over 500,000 illegal immigrants caught crossing the border in 2025 alone. More people than the entire population of Tucson. The influx is overwhelming border facilities, leaving local communities to deal with the fallout. Crime is spiking, with drug smuggling and human trafficking turning quiet border towns like Douglas and Nogales into danger zones. Sheriff's departments report a 30% rise in violent crime linked to cartel activity, straining already underfunded police forces. Tourists, once drawn to Arizona's stunning Grand Canyon and vibrant cultural festivals, are staying away, scared off by headlines of border chaos, causing a $2 billion drop in tourism revenue last year. The economy is tanking, with small businesses in border counties shuttering as customers vanish. Politicians are making it worse. Rumors swirl that some are taking cash from cartels to look the other way, while others push for open border policies that locals say ignore their struggles. In Phoenix, the growing Muslim population, now over 50,000, is sparking heated debates over new mosque constructions and religious accommodations, with town halls turning into shouting matches. Meanwhile, ranchers like Tom Hernandez, a third-generation cattleman near Sierra Vista, are at their wits' end. Tom says his fences are cut weekly by migrants crossing his land, costing him thousands in lost cattle and repairs. "I haven't slept a full night in years," he told a local paper. Schools in border towns are overcrowded, with some districts reporting 20% more students than they can handle, stretching resources thin. It's wild to think a state this close to collapse is only number 9. Things are heating up fast here, and with tensions rising and no clear solutions in sight, it's anyone's guess how long Arizona can hold on before the situation boils over. Number 8. Pennsylvania. At number 8, we've got Pennsylvania, a state that's a shadow of its former self. Once an industrial powerhouse with steel mills and coal mines driving the nation's economy, it's now fading away fast. Factories are shutting down left and right. Over 1,500 manufacturing plants closed since 2015. And good-paying jobs have vanished, leaving entire towns like Scranton and Erie hollowed out. Between 2020 and 2025, over 200,000 residents packed up and left, shrinking the population and gutting local tax bases. The economy's a wreck, with unemployment in some counties hitting 10%, double the national average. Dirty politics are a huge problem. The governor was caught last year taking bribes from energy companies pushing fracking deals, and trust in leadership is at an all-time low, with only 25% of Pennsylvanians saying they trust state officials, per a recent poll. In Philadelphia, the Muslim community, now over 100,000 strong, is growing, sparking heated fights over affordable housing and school policies. Parents went ballistic when halal meal options were added to school menus, with protests outside district offices. Small businesses are struggling, too, with mom-and-pop shops in places like Allentown closing as inflation and supply chain issues bite. Take Joe Carter, a steelworker from Bethlehem, who lost his job when his plant shut down in 2023. Unable to find work, he lost his home to foreclosure, a story echoed by thousands across the state. Rural hospitals are closing at an alarming rate, 12 since 2020, forcing residents to drive hours for care. Public schools are underfunded, with teacher layoffs hitting districts like Reading Hard, where class sizes have ballooned to 35 students. Corruption scandals keep piling up, with 3 state legislators indicted this year alone for misusing public funds. I can't believe how fast this place is crumbling. Pennsylvania is a sad case of what happens when leaders care more about power than people, and with no clear turnaround in sight, it's sliding further into decline. Number 7, Ohio. Ohio lands at number 7, a Rust Belt state crumbling under its own weight. Once a manufacturing titan, Ohio's bleeding jobs and people at an alarming rate. Unemployment's hit 10%, well above the national average, and over 150,000 residents have left since 2020, draining cities like Youngstown and Dayton. The state budget's a mess, with a $1.2 billion deficit projected for 2026, forcing cuts to schools and public services. Manufacturing's nearly dead. Over 2,000 factories have shuttered in the past decade, and nothing substantial is replacing those jobs, leaving entire communities stuck in poverty. Politicians are too busy pocketing cash to help. 2 state senators were indicted in 2024 for selling votes on major infrastructure bills, fueling public outrage. In Columbus, the Muslim population has doubled to 80,000 in 10 years, sparking heated fights over resources. Last month, a community center was trashed during protests over funding for multicultural programs. It's shocking how far Ohio has fallen. Take Mike Reynolds, a welder I heard about from Akron, who grew up in a thriving town but now calls it a ghost town. Boarded up stores, empty streets, and no hope in sight. Opioid overdoses are still rampant, with Ohio reporting 4,500 deaths last year, among the highest in the nation. Rural hospitals are closing, 10 since 2021, leaving folks driving hours for basic care. Public schools are struggling, with Cleveland's district laying off 200 teachers due to budget shortfalls. Corruption scandals keep piling up, with a third official caught this year funneling state contracts to cronies. I can't believe how fast this state is unraveling. Number 7 might be too generous if Ohio's leaders keep ignoring the downward spiral, and with no clear plan to turn things around, the state's future looks grim. Number 6, Michigan. Do you remember Detroit? Yes, that same car city which was known as the car manufacturing city till a few years ago. Today you can see the condition of this city. What you are seeing is Detroit, Michigan's at number 6, and it's a mess teetering on the edge of collapse. The auto industry's collapse has gutted the state's economy. Over 1,200 auto plants and suppliers have closed since 2010, wiping out 150,000 jobs and leaving cities like Flint and Saginaw struggling to survive. Detroit's a war zone, with murder rates soaring to 45 per 100,000 residents, one of the highest in the nation, making parts of the city feel like a battlefield. Illegal immigrants are pouring in, with Border Patrol reporting 20,000 apprehensions in 2024 alone, straining already scarce resources like housing and healthcare. In Dearborn, the Muslim population, now over 50% of the city's 100,000 residents, is at the center of heated arguments over resource allocation, from school curricula to public funding. Some locals say it's splitting the state apart. Dirty politics are rampant. 3 Lansing officials were caught in 2024 misusing $10 million meant for infrastructure, funneling it to private developers. It's heartbreaking. A veteran named Paul Thompson told a local reporter he lost his home to property taxes after his benefits were cut, while the state allocated $5 million for migrant support programs. Small businesses are folding, with 30% of Detroit's storefronts now vacant, and rural areas aren't faring much better. 25 hospitals have shuttered since 2015, forcing residents to travel hours for care. Public schools are in crisis, with Grand Rapids cutting 150 teachers due to a $20 million budget shortfall. Opioid deaths remain sky-high, with 2,800 fatalities reported last year, adding to the state's woes. Corruption scandals keep eroding trust, with 2 more lawmakers under investigation for campaign finance violations. Michigan used to be a symbol of American strength, its factories powering the nation, but now it's a cautionary tale of decline. Number 5, Florida. Florida's at number 5, and it's a shock to see the Sunshine State in such disarray. Hurricanes and rising seas are battering coastal towns, with storms causing $15 billion in damage in 2024 alone, and sea level rise threatening 10% of the state's land by 2030. Tourism, once Florida's lifeblood, is dying. Visitor numbers dropped 25% last year, as people avoid vacationing in disaster zones like Miami Beach and the Keys. Illegal immigrants from the Caribbean are flooding in, with over 100,000 arrivals recorded in 2024, overwhelming shelters, schools, and healthcare systems in cities like Miami. Politics are a circus. Governor DeSantis and lawmakers are gridlocked over relief funds, with $500 million still unallocated, while 3 state senators face allegations of diverting recovery money to personal accounts. In Miami, the Muslim population, now over 70,000, is growing, fueling tensions over new mosque constructions and cultural integration, with protests erupting at city council meetings. It's unreal. A woman named Maria Lopez shared with a local news outlet that her home in Homestead was destroyed by Hurricane Ian in 2022, and she's still waiting for promised FEMA aid 2 years later. Insurance rates have skyrocketed. Homeowners' premiums are up 40% since 2020, forcing many to abandon their properties. Small businesses, especially in coastal areas, are closing at a rate of 20 per month, unable to recover from storm damage or afford new flood policies. Public schools in hard-hit areas like Fort Lauderdale are overcrowded, with some classrooms holding 40 students due to budget cuts and population shifts. Environmental degradation is worsening, with 30% of the Everglades wetlands lost to saltwater intrusion, threatening wildlife and water supplies. Corruption scandals continue to erode trust, with 2 more officials implicated in a kickback scheme tied to rebuilding contracts. Florida's turning from paradise to chaos, a state overwhelmed by nature and human failures alike. It's only number 5. Brace yourself for what's next on this grim countdown. Number 4, Illinois, a state drowning in a sea of troubles. The pension crisis alone is crushing, with over $200 billion in unfunded liabilities, leaving no money for basic services like roads or schools. Chicago's a nightmare, reporting over 1,000 murders in 2025, one of the highest rates in the nation, making neighborhoods like Englewood feel like war zones. People are fleeing in droves. Over 300,000 residents left between 2020 and 2025, shrinking the tax base and gutting cities like Springfield and Peoria. Corruption so entrenched it's practically a state tradition. 4 governors have gone to prison since the 1970s, and the current one faces a federal probe for alleged kickbacks tied to state contracts. In the suburbs like Schaumburg, the growing Muslim community, now over 60,000, is sparking heated disputes over school curricula and public funding for cultural centers, with town halls turning chaotic. I can't get over how broken this place is. A shop owner named Carla Rivera told a local reporter she shuttered her Chicago deli after 30 years, crushed by skyrocketing property taxes and constant break-ins. The state's economy is reeling, with unemployment in Chicago hitting 9%, well above the national average. Small businesses are collapsing, over 1,500 closed in 2024 alone, unable to cope with high costs and declining customers. Public schools are in crisis, with Chicago public schools facing a $500 million deficit, leading to 200 teacher layoffs and crumbling facilities. Infrastructure is falling apart, with 25% of Illinois' bridges rated structurally deficient, posing risks to commuters. Healthcare access is shrinking, as rural hospitals, 15 since 2020, have closed, forcing residents to travel hours for care. Another corruption scandal broke last month, implicating 2 state legislators in a pay-to-play scheme involving construction permits. Illinois is sinking fast, dragging its residents down with it, and it's only number 4. Things are about to get wilder as we climb this grim list. Number 3, New York. New York grabs number 3, a state falling apart at a staggering pace. Between 2020 and 2025, over 1 million people fled, driven out by sky-high taxes, among the nation's highest at 12.7% for top earners, and rampant crime, with NYC's violent crime rate up 20% in 2024. The economy's dangerously tethered to Wall Street's volatility, and last year's market dip cost the state $10 billion in revenue, gutting public services. Corruption's a way of life here. The mayor's under federal investigation for allegedly taking bribes tied to real estate deals, and 3 state legislators were indicted for similar schemes in 2024. The Muslim population in NYC, now over 800,000, is booming, fueling heated debates over public services like halal school lunches and mosque zoning, with community board meetings turning into shouting matches. Infrastructure's a disaster. A bridge collapse in the Bronx last month killed 5 and exposed the state's 30% structurally deficient bridges. I heard about a family, the Garcias, who fled to Texas after their Brooklyn neighborhood became unlivable due to constant break-ins and unaffordable rent. Small businesses are shutting down at an alarming rate. 2,000 closed in NYC alone last year, crushed by taxes and declining foot traffic. Homelessness is surging, with over 90,000 people in NYC shelters nightly, overwhelming social services. Public schools are stretched thin, with a $1.2 billion budget deficit forcing teacher layoffs and class sizes of 35 in places like Queens. Subway delays and breakdowns are up 15%, frustrating commuters and hurting businesses. Healthcare access is crumbling, with 10 hospitals closing in rural areas since 2021, leaving residents hours from care. Another corruption scandal broke last week, implicating a city council member in a kickback scheme tied to infrastructure contracts. Number 2, Texas. Texas is number 2, and it's a shocker to see the Lone Star State in such dire straits. Illegal immigrants are crossing the border by the millions, over 2.5 million apprehensions recorded in 2024 alone. Overwhelming resources, with border towns like Eagle Pass reporting a 40% spike in violent crime linked to smuggling. The energy industry, once Texas' backbone, is tanking, hammered by federal regulations and cheaper oil from overseas, leading to 50,000 job losses in Houston's oil sector since 2023. Politicians are too busy bickering to act, with Austin gridlocked over budget cuts, while 2 state officials face probes for funneling contracts to donors. The Muslim community, now over 400,000 in Houston and Dallas, is growing, sparking tensions over school policies and mosque expansions, with protests erupting at city halls. A rancher named Jim Callahan told a local outlet that migrants cross his land near Del Rio weekly, destroying fences and costing him $20,000 in damages. He feels abandoned by the state. This insane Texas is in this spot. Public schools are overcrowded, with districts like El Paso adding 10,000 students but no new teachers, leading to packed classrooms of 40 kids. Hospitals in border counties are at breaking point, with wait times up 50% due to uninsured patients. Small businesses are hurting, 1,500 shuttered in San Antonio last year, hit by rising costs and declining customers. Infrastructure is crumbling, with 20% of Texas roads rated poor, causing delays and accidents. The state's budget deficit hit $8 billion in 2025, forcing cuts to Medicaid and public safety. Another scandal broke last month, implicating a senator in a land deal tied to cartel money. Texas is hanging by a thread, but at number 2, the worst is still to come. Number 1, California. Is California also in this list? You are shocked, right? Yes, I have placed a state at number 1 in this list, which is called the backbone of America, but now you keep watching the video without skipping. I want to show you whether this is the same California which was once considered the hub of startups. Keep watching. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Number 1 is California, a state in absolute freefall. The budget's bleeding out with a $50 billion deficit in 2025, forcing cuts to schools, roads, and public safety. Illegal immigrants, numbering over 3 million, are overwhelming hospitals and classrooms. Los Angeles schools report 15,000 new students but no new funding. Businesses are fleeing at a record pace, crushed by the nation's highest taxes and stifling regulations. Silicon Valley's office vacancy rate hit 30% last year as tech giants like Tesla relocate. Corruption's out of control. The governor faces embezzlement charges tied to $20 million in misdirected recovery funds, and 2 state senators were indicted for similar schemes. The Muslim population, now over 1 million, is growing, fueling heated disputes over Sharia law accommodations and resource allocation, with protests disrupting city council meetings in San Francisco. A shop owner named Mark Chun told a local reporter he shuttered his Oakland hardware store after 20 years, unable to afford rising costs and constant break-ins. Power outages are routine, with 10 million residents affected by rolling blackouts last summer due to an overstretched grid. Water scarcity is critical. 40% of reservoirs are at historic lows, hitting farmers hard and spiking food prices. Infrastructure is crumbling, with 25% of roads rated poor and a bridge collapse in Sacramento injuring 10 last month. Homelessness is skyrocketing, with 200,000 people on the streets nightly, overwhelming shelters. Public schools are in crisis, with a $2 billion deficit leading to 1,000 teacher layoffs in Los Angeles alone. Another scandal broke last week, implicating a state official in a kickback scheme tied to housing contracts. California's the king of collapse, a stark wake-up call for America. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.